Now, the first matchup that we have to talk about, we have the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are entering this game as a 5.5-point favorite at home. This game's going to be played 1 p.m. Eastern time on CBS. Both of these two teams won their week 1 matchups last week. The Raiders defeated the Ravens 33-27 in a really exciting game that came all the way down to the wire, which ended up having to go into overtime, where the Raiders were able to pull off the victory. They got a big win at home in Vegas. Then you have the Pittsburgh Steelers, who pulled off the upset victory against the Buffalo Bills on the road in Buffalo, 23-17. Now, when you go back and you look at that Steelers game, okay, if you were a Raiders fan and you didn't watch the game and all you did was look at the stats, you would say, hey, JT, how the hell did the Pittsburgh Steelers find a way to beat Buffalo when the Bills outgained them 371 yards to 252 yards? Well, my friend, the Steelers played a pretty good game all around on the defense side of the football and on special teams. So when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into this game, how is this offense going to fare against the Las Vegas Raiders defense? Now, I'm not going to come out and say that the Raiders defense is, completely improved over with Gus Bradley as defensive coordinator, but I am going to say that the Raiders played a pretty good game defensively last week against the Baltimore Ravens. And I don't want to overreact to anything that happened week 1 or really early in the season. Like, I need more time for me to fully come around to say, hey, yeah, the Raiders defense has improved under Gus Bradley. So I still need to see more. And I'm not saying this because I'm a hater of the Las Vegas Raiders, anything like that. Like, this is my philosophy when it comes to every single team in the NFL. You don't want to hop on the bandwagon too early. So I normally wait like a couple of weeks. So I need at least 4 or 5 more weeks to see just how improved this Raiders defense is. But this Raiders defense definitely does look pretty good, and I was really impressed with their pass rush, especially when you look at Max Crosby. Then you look at the way that he played against Charlie Villanueva, who formerly used to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I've been trying to tell Ravens fans that Charlie Villanueva is good when it comes to run blocking, but when it comes to pass protection, he got dominated a lot of times last year. So you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line, which is not really all that great. I was kind of disappointed with how the Steelers offensive line performed last week, especially when it came to opening up running lanes for Najee Harris. And that's the next question that I have. Will the Steelers be able to get Najee Harris going? Now, one thing that I was really encouraged about was the fact that the Steelers were still really committed to running the football with Najee Harris, despite the fact that they didn't really have a lot of success. He had 16 carries for 45 rushing yards. He had a couple of solid runs, but nothing really all that spectacular. Now, I think that he could be in for a better performance against the Las Vegas Raiders than what he did against Buffalo last week, because last week the Steelers did try to get him a little bit involved in the passing game. Big Ben had a couple of short checkdowns that he tried to get the ball off to Najee Harris, but they simply just weren't on the same page. So hopefully Najee Harris will be a bigger factor in the passing game this week against the Las Vegas Raiders than what he was last week against the Buffalo Bills. Now, everybody's talking about the Steelers' offensive line, but there's also some concerns when it comes to the offensive line for the Las Vegas Raiders. You are trying to figure things out because you are kind of banged up on the offensive line, and you're facing one of the best defensive lines in all of the NFL with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You have to worry about TJ Watt. You have to worry about Cam Hayward. You have to worry about Stephon Tuitt. You also have to worry about Alex Highsmith, Melvin Ingram. Like, the Steelers' defensive line played phenomenal last week against the Buffalo Bills. And if you were to ask me the question, okay, JT, out of the Raiders or the Steelers, which offensive line are you the most concerned about heading into this game? I probably would have to go with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I'm not saying this because I believe that the Raiders offensive line is worse than the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm not saying that. The reason why I'm more concerned about the Raiders offensive line in this game than I am the Pittsburgh Steelers is simply for the fact that the Steelers defensive line is really good. Now, I'm not trying to say this to take anything away from the Las Vegas Raiders defensive line, but Raiders fans know and everybody else knows that the Steelers defensive line is better than Las Vegas, which is why I have bigger concerns there for the Las Vegas Raiders, because the Steelers pass rush is going to be really good. So when I look at Las Vegas, okay, and you have the injury concerns that you have on the offensive line, going against one of the best defensive lines in the NFL, I definitely feel like there's a lot of room to be concerned there. And I'm concerned about Pittsburgh's offensive line as well, but not as concerned as I would be for the Las Vegas Raiders, simply for the fact that the Raiders defensive line isn't as good as the Steelers defensive line is. Not saying that there shouldn't be any concerns, because you do have to worry about Max Crosby. You also have a couple of other guys coming back. Maybe you get Cleveland Farrell back, Yannick Ngakoue. So, if you're the Raiders, I feel like you have to be more balanced this week than what you were last week against Baltimore. Now, Josh Jacobs, I don't think he was 100%. I think he had some illnesses or something that he was dealing with. So I don't really think it was 100%. So I think that kind of affected, what John Gruden wanted to do. But John Gruden was too heavily reliant on the passing game. You got to be a little bit more balanced. But Darren Waller had a monster game. He had 10 receptions for 105 receiving yards. He caught a touchdown as well. And how are the Steelers going to defend Darren Waller? Now, I have Darren Waller on my fantasy football squad, and yes, I will be starting him in this game, because you're not going to stop Darren Waller. The same thing I said last week when the Steelers were going against Stephon Diggs. You're not going to stop Stephon Diggs. The only thing you can do is contain him, and that's what the Pittsburgh Steelers did. They did a really good job against Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs still got his, but you're not going to completely shut down a player like Stephon Diggs' caliber. The only thing you can do is try to slow him down. So, same thing goes for Darren Waller. If the Steelers can keep Darren Waller to under 100 receiving yards, I think that's a win. Now, what are you going to do? Are you going to match him up with Devin Bush? Because Devin Bush is known for how good he is in coverage. He does have pretty good speed. Or are you going to try to put Minka Fitzpatrick on him? Or are you going to try to have a similar approach to what Baltimore try to do? Play him underneath for a linebacker, have a safety over the top? Don't really know. But Darren Waller is a matchup nightmare, because not only do they play him in at tight end, but they also have him line up across all kinds of different, positions amongst the formation. Sometimes he'll play wide receiver. It's just a nightmare trying to defend Darren Waller. So the Steelers are not going to slow down Darren Waller. All the Steelers can do is hope to contain Darren Waller. And I think if the Steelers can keep him to under 100 receiving yards, then I think that is a win. Now, how is Derek Carr and Big Ben going to perform? Because Big Ben, he didn't really have the greatest game last week against Buffalo. I mean, he did what he needed to do to win the football game. But obviously, if you're Pittsburgh, you need more out of the running game, because Big Ben, in this stage of his career, isn't going to be able to carry you to a win every single week. And when you look at the quarterbacks who have the most success at the age that Big Ben is at, they're able to have that success because they're able to have legitimate running games. They're able to have some balance on offense. So I think it's really important that Pittsburgh gets that run game going. Now, if you are a Raiders fan, you feel really confident about how your run defense is going to be, because I feel like the Raiders' run defense, I feel like it could have been better, but I feel like he did a pretty good job. I know when you go back and you look at the stats, you're going to see 189 rushing yards. But if you take away the 86 rushing yards that Lamar Jackson had, okay, I feel like they didn't do all too shabby, because Lamar Jackson is going to get his regardless. So when you look at the Raiders, you're looking at, okay, JT, I don't think the Steelers are going to have a good game running the football, because you didn't have a good game running the football against Buffalo, which is true. But at the same time, I still feel like the Steelers are going to try to find ways to get this run game going, because it was week 1. You're still trying to figure a lot of things out. So I really do feel like Najee Harris is going to be in for a really big game. But if the Steelers cannot have success running the football, then you're going to have a lot of confidence in your defense of being able to stop the Steelers offense if they have to beat you throwing the football, because basically you're going to say, okay, JT, we're going to dare Big Ben at his age, pretty much playing in his last season as a Pittsburgh Steeler, to beat us. And if you're a Raiders fan, based on the performance that you had last week against the Ravens, you should feel that confident. But I do want to say one thing is that if you're a Raiders fan, you also got to take into context that the Steelers have a better group of wide receivers than the Baltimore Ravens do. You have Deontay Johnson, you have Juju Smith-Schuster, you have Chase Claypool. When it comes to Chase Claypool, you have to worry about the big play threat that he has. Deontay Johnson is more of the possession wide receiver. He's the guy who's going to keep the chains moving. Similar thing with Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju Smith-Schuster makes a lot of big catches on third down. So when you look at the Raiders, yeah, your defense may be a little bit improved, but don't think that just because you were really good against Baltimore that you're going to have that same success against Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh's offense, I think, is a little bit more talented than what Baltimore currently has right now. And they kind of have a similar, problem when it comes to the offensive line. So although Baltimore is better when it comes to running the football, I think that Pittsburgh's a little bit more effective when it comes to throwing the football. And on top of that, Pittsburgh was matched up against a really good secondary in Buffalo. Is your secondary just as good as Buffalo with a guy like Tre'Davious White? I don't really know. So, you do have Trayvon Mullen. I like him a lot. You do have Damon Arnett. But I really think that if you're a Raiders fan, you should be confident, but do not overlook the passing attack for Pittsburgh. If the offensive line can hold up and Big Ben gets enough time to throw the football, then he can do some damage, because I do like the matchup of the Steelers wide receivers against this Raiders secondary. The question is, will Big Ben have enough time to throw the football to those wide receivers? Now, the biggest matchup that I'm going to be looking at is rookie offensive tackle Alex Leatherwood against TJ Watt. Now, I touched on Max Crosby. He has a favorable matchup also. But when you look at TJ Watt, he had 2 sacks last week. And I think Max Crosby had 2 sacks also. So Alex Leatherwood is a rookie offensive tackle. It's really tough. Being a rookie in the NFL, having to be matched up against one of the best pass rushers, one of the best defensive players in the NFL, is going to be really tough. So I'm really intrigued in seeing how Alex Leatherwood performs in this game. Now, also, the Raiders' third down defense was phenomenal last week against Baltimore. Baltimore was 3 of 12 on third down versus this Raiders defense. Pittsburgh didn't have a lot of success on third down last week against Buffalo. They were 4 of 12. So I'm wondering if the third down woes are going to continue for Pittsburgh. And will the third down defense for the Raiders continue to play outstanding like how they did last week against the Baltimore Ravens? Now, the team that I'm taking to win this game, I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers to get the victory. I really feel like the Pittsburgh Steelers have the advantage up front when it comes to their defensive line versus the Las Vegas Raiders offensive line, with the injury concerns that the Raiders have on their offensive line. And also, Raiders fans probably going to point out and be like, well, JT, your offensive line isn't all that great neither, which I understand. But you also have to take into context that the Steelers' defensive line is better than the Las Vegas Raiders' defensive line, which is why I think that's a matchup that's going to be able to be exploited. So I think that this is going to be a really close game. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers sneak a victory out. I think they're going to win 24-20 is my final score prediction. I'm rolling with the Pittsburgh Steelers.